Good morning, and welcome to Azan Medz here on the Bridge 99 FM with me, your host, Jeffrey Azan. Remember, you can check out Bridge 99 on the entire 99 bandwidth. That's 0.1, 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, and 0.9. You can check us out online at thebridge99fm.com to see what's happening in studio. And if you're on the move, remember, you can always download our mobile app in the Android Play Store, Apple App Store by simply searching The Bridge 99 FM, all one word. We have a fantastic show for you today. Of course, we are still in February, and February has many, what would we call them, titles to it. It's Reggae Month, a big celebration here in Jamaica and the rest of the world. There was Valentine's Day, where we had a very interesting episode about the business of Valentine's Day. I believe yesterday, Monday, was President's Day in the US. Tomorrow, Wednesday, is Ash Wednesday. But one of the key factors about February that is recognized, at least here in the West, is Black History Month. And believe it or not, here on Levels and Meds, we're going to break it down. We're going to break down the business of preserving Black history. A critical element to not just what we'd call, I guess, the Black populace, the African populace, the African American, the Afro-Caribbean populace, but it is a rich history that needs to be preserved in terms of the telling of the story of mankind overall. Today, we're going to be joined by a very, very special guest, somebody who I have the utmost respect and hold in the highest esteem. She is I'll call her the international famous storyteller, and we're going to be getting much more into who she is and her details. But trust me, you don't want to miss this conversation. We're also going to be really exploring this concept of not just preserving Black history, but preserving history through storytelling. Storytelling is one of those aspects of mankind in which we tend to not really appreciate. As one person said, storytelling is half of the story of mankind, because mankind is really broken down into one half storytelling and the other half science. I want you to take that time and think about it. One half of our life is built on storytelling, and the other half of our life is built on science. Science is easy to understand. We test, we try, we research, we learn, we gather the information, and we create the hypothesis, and we test whether it's true or false. But storytelling is an element of faith. It's an element of passing on. It's an element of attracting the believers of a particular concept, principle, or idea. Storytelling is by far one of the major influences of religion. And believe it or not, storytelling was the greatest form of teaching if we're looking at history of mankind from the beginning until now. We have learned most of what we know around the campfire. It's really only in the last 400, 500 years that science became the dominating force. Before that, it was all about storytelling. Now we kind of look at storytelling as something that we do in our pastime. It is a practice for children, where children will read their stories before bed, or we have to read literature for school, or it's something adults do in their pastime. You read a story here, a novel there. We possibly read biographies, and we learn a little bit each time. But storytelling is a key element. In fact, I would dare say it may be the fundamental element that has brought humankind, the entire species of humanity, to the spot where it is right now. So let's not discount the power that is storytelling. Big influential factor in our lives. And if you think you're missing on something, maybe what you're missing is a few stories. Just saying, something to consider. All right, but on this topic of Black history, right? I don't know about you, but when I went to school and you were learning history for the first time, you got that first class, which was I like to call it the jolt. You got that first class, which was about that Middle Passage and how they took the people from Africa and they brought them to the Caribbean, and then from particularly Jamaica, they were then distributed throughout the Caribbean and into the US. And you're given this shock value that the history of Black people is slavery. And you say, okay, where are we going from here? But then the next year in history class, you get the same story again with a little more dates and a few more names. And then the next year in history class, you get a few more dates and a few more names. And really and truly, for many of us, we go through the process of learning Black history only from the perspective of slavery, which for me personally is a very, very poor way to learn Black history. There is the history of Africa and what Africa had done. If you actually study Roman history, you'll actually learn a lot more about Northern Africa and the achievements of Northern Africa more than you would from very often Caribbean history. I mean, I never did history in CXC. I'm talking about first, second, and third form. So please don't, crucify me. But first, second, and third form for me was just the slave trade and the Middle Passage. I can't speak for anybody else, but that's definitely what I learned. And then there's also what has happened in Black history since slavery: invention, legislation, organizations, business, culture, trend, fashion, music. A number of major accomplishments have happened internationally due to what we'd call Black history. It's a rich culture of traditions, achievement, resilience, and it can challenge the harmful narratives and promote a more accurate and nuanced understanding of the experience of that culture. In addition to contributing significantly to Caribbean tourism, which is one of the main markets that earns from this recognition of Black history, it also has become a cultural melting pot that inspires many first world countries, and the preservation of Black Caribbean history can also serve as a source of inspiration and empowerment for future generations. It is important that the preservation of Black history actually be made costly. It's not something that should be treated as frivolous, because it really is a resource intensive endeavor to acquire the data, get the funding, gather the information, put it all together. So we really need to make access to the history not so free and frivolous. Many organizations that focus on preserving Black history actually face financial challenges and struggle to secure the necessary funding to carry out their mission. This is why it's really crucial to explore the business side of preserving Black history and to understand the different models and strategies that can be used to ensure the sustainability and growth of this important work. As I said, we're going to be talking to somebody today who has made somewhat of a career out of the preservation of Black history, out of Caribbean history, out of African history. I don't really like to put all of the segregation between them. I think she's just a preserver of history and a phenomenal storyteller in the way that she delivers. Trust me, I'm excited to get there, but I'm going to keep you guys in suspense for a little bit longer, right? Now, we've spoken a couple minutes about Black history and its importance, and we've spoken a couple minutes about storytelling and its importance. Now, we asked the Bridge Nation, we sent out a poll on social media. If you're not following us on the socials, what are you doing? Folks, head over to the Bridge 99 FM and follow our socials, because we want to hear from you. We asked the people, is social media watering down the value of Black history? And the Bridge Nation came back and they told us. And though some people said no, not really, it's being preserved, it's doing its thing, it's where it needs to be, a majority of folks said, yeah, it's tearing it down. It's not really enhancing what Black history is about. It's actually degrading what Black history is about. So I want us to hear from you, Bridge Nation. We've heard from the socials, but we want to hear from you. So you're going to hit up that WhatsApp line, 876-551-5782. That again, 876-551-5782. And share with us your thoughts. Is it that social media is degrading, pulling down the power, belittling the culture and the richness that is Black history? Or is it blasé? Does it not really matter? Is it not making much of a difference to what is Black history? Remember, that WhatsApp line is 876-551-5782. too. And if you want to be a part of our future polls, remember to head over to our social media, The Bridge 99 FM, all one word. Now, we're going to be playing a track for you guys. For me, I think this is one of those tunes from my early childhood. And in that early childhood, we're going to, there are a lot of bangers. There are a lot of hits that we really enjoyed. But today we're talking about Black history. We're talking about storytelling, and we're talking about the business and preservation of that. And for that, we got one tune here ready for you guys in studio. My engineer looking at me like, what tune are you talking about? Don't worry. They're going to pull it up. They're going to fix it. But the idea is that value of storytelling. Trust me, you guys are going to appreciate it from one of the best storytellers that we have in the media industry today. All right? They're actually singing it in studio, guys. I wish I could give them a mic and let them carry it on for you. But pressing on. While they get that sorted out, because we're going to be playing this tune, cut to a quick commercial break, and then coming back with a rich conversation, right? I want you guys to know who's going to be joining us after the commercial break is none other than the one, the only, Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks. Phenomenal storyteller, actress, writer. She's a founder and artistic director of, she's going to beat me up for mispronouncing this, Intukuma, the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica. And I'm sure she's going to have a lot more to tell us about the business of storytelling and preserving of Black history. Now, what's that tune? Let's hear that tune. And we're back to Levels and Meds here on the Bridge 99 FM with me, your host, Jeffrey Azan. Today, folks, we're talking about the business of preserving Black history through storytelling, and I have probably the single best person at doing it. I may be a little biased, but I think I have the single best person who has ever done it. Joining us in studio is Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks. She really doesn't need any introduction. If you're Jamaican abroad, if you have any remote interest in Jamaica, you've heard the name somewhere in some conversation. But if by some chance you've been living under a rock, please allow me. Dr. Amina is an award-winning writer, actress, storyteller, founder and artistic director of
Tukuma.
All right,
you call him Brother Tukuma.
All right, Brother Tukuma. And the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica. We're going to get into what all of these are. She weaves tales from the loom of her practical knowledge of the Caribbean, her life skills as a mother, grandmother, educator, communication specialist, political scientist, so she not just fool and tell story, social and cultural policy researcher, analyst, and even a farmer. I'm not sure she find time for that. But all of that encompasses a wide variety of stories which covers a range of issues affecting both gender, environment, children, and the direction of human development. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome, whether you're in your car, your office, your home, or otherwise, to the stage of the Bridge 99 FM, Dr. Amina Blackwood. Welcome, Doc.
Performing on the bridge.
Performing on the bridge. There we go.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? A bridge theater.
I'm for it. Folks, I tell you, we're already going to have a lot of ideas coming your way, right? The bridge theater. I like it.
Yes.
We need to talk after the show.
All right.
Dr. Amina, what's your preferred title? You have so many titles.
I'm a storyteller.
You're a storyteller.
It's all that I do. It's the most important thing that I do. I heard you separating science from storytelling, and I'm saying, but what is the story of science? So it's not really separated. The story of how Newton claimed to have discovered gravity is a story.
It's a story.
A man sit down under an apple tree one day and an apple lick him in the head and him say, how that go? It's a story. Makes sense. It's a story about how our grandparents knew that turmeric and ginger could help us fight that thing there.
Which every tea company now all of a sudden has a turmeric and ginger
Don't
tea.
it?
And it instant, it draw, it come in all forms.
Yeah. And our grandparents discovered that through what is now called IKS, Indigenous Knowledge System. In the West, you have to have empirical evidence.
Yeah.
Amongst our people, we have indigenous knowledge system. We live with the thing. We watch it. We see how it go. Which is why when a foreign company, I won't call them name because we don't mean to be disrespectful,
No.
we don't want to be misunderstood.
Correct.
But many years ago, a company came and bought out the Blue Mountain lands to grow their own coffee. And when they started to terrace the lands, the people who live there all their lives, 70 and 80 years, say, "Uno can't terrace the land so, because water going come and wash where the place." And because they hadn't been to a university and didn't have any big scientific degree, nobody listened to them. And the first time rain fell, Portland was cut off from Kingston, if you remember that.
Yes.
Indigenous knowledge systems is what we know because of how we relate to the environment in which we live. We produce science and geography and all of these things, and that is the story of our lives.
Listen here, folks. I normally tell you guys that you should get your notebooks, but I feel like I need to leave the studio and go get my notebook and come back, because this is going to be a whirlwind. Storyteller Amina. I'm going to drop the doctor. I like the storyteller.
Yeah, man.
Storyteller Amina. What led you to this passion of storytelling? What I know you and I have small talk about it, but for those who don't know, what was the instance, moment, insight that led you for this passion of storytelling?
Okay, let me begin by making a reference to Anansi.
Okay.
Every other animal, when they go to build a house, they go searching for the materials.
Okay.
Only Anansi has the materials inside of himself. So that everything we need to do and become is already inside of us. This is Black History Month, but we end up being miseducated. A book by Carter G. Woodson, that we have to have on high heel shoes and jacket and tie and all of these wonderful things. So my parents, who were the experts at indigenous knowledge system, come from the country, would tell us stories all the time. But because them come from the country and never finish high school, my mother never finished primary school, we believe that people who come from the country before Elastic Light don't have anything valuable to tell us. And they believe it too. And so my parents raised us on stories, but also raised us to go after the high heel shoes and the jacket and tie and the stocking. But they were telling us stories all the time. And in high school, there were several teachers who would say to me, "You're telling a story." And they would say so in an admiring way. And one of my teachers once said to me, "Do you realize you speak anecdotally?" Now, where I went to school, we had to do Latin. So me think me cute. Me say, "I'm enjoying the Spanish. I'm having a hard time with the English. I love Latin, but I don't know how to conjugate anecdotally." So she never thought I was cute.
Right.
But I did think so.
You believe.
Cute and bright. So all my life, people have been indicating to me that I'm a storyteller, because that's how I talk and that's how I teach. I go to live in Antigua. And while I'm living there, I establish a group for children called Child's Play, which appeared in the Vice Chancellor's report several times. We operated out of the University Center in Antigua. And there was a young man, a little boy, he was 8, Adekunle Osoba. He was born in Nigeria to a Nigerian father and an Antiguan mother. Himself and his mom returned to Antigua in preparation for the arrival of his father, who had never seen the Caribbean. And one day we're telling stories in this group. And Adekunle tells a story that his Nigerian father told him in Nigeria. That my Jamaican father, who had never left Jamaica, told me in Jamaica. And light bulbs went off. I wanted to know how it is that story was being told on either side of the Atlantic. And I wanted to know how long that story was being told. And I wanted to know how stories helped us to survive. And I wanted to know how the stories survived. So that's one of my ha-ha moments. I've had people like Professor Rupert Lewis who have told me that storytelling is part of the reparation work.
Elaborate.
Which led me to think of what did we lose as we traveled across the Atlantic as the first case of human trafficking? When we arrived, what stories were we not allowed to tell? And if we were to recover those stories today, what would we see in those stories? And what we would see is respect for the aged, a particular way of relating to the environment, a particular way of going to the river. And Nancy always down by the river and look for something. We would see food security. All the stories about Nancy looking for food is not just because I'm hungry and walk with him belly. It's about food security. We would see so much and perhaps all of what is now encoded as the goals of sustainable development for the world. That's reparation work.
So we're really talking about we had the solution 400 years ago. If we're going to use the benchmark most people used to say. We had the solution 400 years ago, but we're now being reintroduced to the solution through new means, policies, politics. I know you said don't separate them, but modern science.
Right.
But the truth is we had it in the stories long ago. But we had lost a lot of our value, a lot of the core of who we are and who we could be and who we should be and who we should strive to be, by losing a lot of our stories.
We didn't lose it.
We didn't lose it.
It was taken from us. It was brutalized out of us. The language we spoke, the clothes we wore, the way we carried our hair, that was taken from us. We were made to hate. Really, I was about to say to dislike, but I hear Professor Nettleford in my head say, call it what it is, rape, pillage, and plunder. And those are his words. So I'm calling it what it is, because if we don't name it, there is very little we can do about it. So it was taken from us. Dennis Scott wrote a play called Echo in the Bone, in which one of the main characters in the play is a drummer called Rattler. And he's called Rattler because he doesn't speak. And he doesn't speak not because he was born a deaf mute, but because his tongue was literally cut out of his mouth. And so I think that is a good analogy. That's a good way of Dennis Scott teaching us about what happened to us. It's all here, but somehow we've lost the means to transmit it.
Folks, I never thought the show was going to get this heavy, you know, but I'm having a great time. I am in my Aki right now. Talk to us more about, well, I want to come to the idea of losing, and not in the sense of some of us losing it, but lost in communication. We find that in modern society, communication is probably the largest driving force of modern society. People are making millions, if not billions, on capitalizing on the way people are communicating. Hence, we have the social media, we have the digital platforms, we have email, we have the entire the internet itself is a system of communication. But a lot gets lost, not just in translation, but in comprehension. How do we preserve stories over generations, possibly hundreds of years? You say you're hearing a story in Antigua from a Nigerian that you heard in Jamaica. Again, if we're going by the pass down of history, that story could be 400, 500, 600 years old, and yet somehow it has preserved its historic roots and its accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
How do we ensure in our communication that we don't lose things in the translation?
Jeffrey, we need to slow down. We have so become a soundbite generation. We have so become a 30 seconds, sometimes less, on TikTok. I was laughing at one of my nephews at Christmas time. We're sitting down and he asked me a question. And you gather by now I love to talk. And I talk for 5 minutes. And him say, "Thank you, Auntie." And I said, "No, that's not the answer. That's just the context." That's just the context within which we are going to be able to try to give an answer. And I think we have raised ourselves. We're so busy. We have to get to the next point. Just give me the punchline. And life is a lot more than just the punchline. One of the most respected journalists, and I've forgotten what time he lived, I think he's in the early 1900s, named Mencken, Mencken, you can look him up, once said that for every complicated question, for every complicated problem, there is usually given a simple answer, which is wrong because the problem is already complicated. So why do you think you can give just a simple off the finger answer? One of the things we discovered during COVID, I think, is the need to talk. And I think some of us on lockdown, and I think some of us discovered that we didn't have anything to talk about. Because after we give the 30-second answer, what else is there to say?
After I ask you, how was your day?
That's the end and you say, nice. That's the end. And then you say, how was your lunch? Nice. And how was the traffic? Nice. And you only know one word?
Folks, I don't want to, but we have to take a break right now. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back very quickly to the business of storytelling and preserving our history through storytelling. Can't wait to come back.
Yo, dancehall can't start when the money must shut the content.
Right.
Introducing the Bridge 99 FM Dance Hall Chart Show.
I are the one and they are what?
All about our weekly top 10 music countdown, our Bridge Spotlight featuring artists and music producers, and our chat with the Bridge Jocks and music director.
We bring you in on the action. Just send your videos every week for your favorite artists on the chart in our Fan Affair segment. Do it WhatsApp 876-551-5782.
Jogger!
It's new, it's authentic, it's trend setting, and only on the Bridge 99 FM Dance Hall Chart Show, hosted by Shell.
You know the vibes this Friday at 1 p.m. at the wickedest thing since dancehall. You know the thing go, we're bringing the vibes to the where, to the what, to the world.
Bridging the Caribbean gaps across the globe on social media. We are Facebooking, IGing, TikToking, and Twittering at The Bridge 99 FM.
Over 14,000 Jamaicans are living with HIV and not yet on treatment. We want you to know you can live a normal life with HIV. Now is the time to get on treatment. Now is the time to start taking your medication on time, every time. Now is the time for your HIV status to become undetectable. Come to Jamaica AIDS Support for Life. We will help you to reach viral suppression. Now is the time to achieve all your goals and live a long and healthy life. To get on treatment, contact Jamaica AIDS Support for Life at 876-925-0021. A message from Jamaica AIDS Support for Life and the kind support of USAID from the American people.
A word on the Bridge 99 FM.
What happens when things don't go according to plan? Are you the one that's going to throw in the towel? Or are you just going to look through and reassess and say, well, let me see why this didn't work out? Why didn't it go according to plan? And sometimes God is just redirecting us for a better path, for a better outcome.
A word on the Bridge 99 FM.
Watch the man, you don't know this advice at the end present for The Bridge 99 FM connecting. We said that station, you're a leader. And we say, give him like a time, a like a feature. Under the moonlight and sense of mean, yeah. The Bridge 99 FM, Diana representing.
And we're back to Levels and Meds here on the Bridge 99 FM with me, your host, Jeffrey Azan. And joining me in studio is the doctor, the phenomenal storyteller, Amina Blackwood Meeks. Oh, yes, okay, good. I got her name in the right order. I was worried I was going to say Meeks Blackwood. Folks, remember you can check out the Bridge 99 on the entire 99 bandwidth, or you can check us out online at thebridge99fm.com. And if you're on the move, you can download our mobile app at the Android Play Store or Apple App Store. But we're jumping into it because we're talking about preserving our history through storytelling. And we kind of closed off on the idea of how do we avoid, because, you know, our storyteller Amina told us that we did not lose our stories. They were taken from us because we were taught to hate ourselves. We were taught to hate what we stood for. We were taught to disown that which we identified with. And I challenge that by saying, well, yes, that was taken from us, but we also lose a lot in how stories are told, in the translation of a story, in the preservation of the accuracy of the story. And she left us with this little nugget that I'm going to paraphrase. She kind of said along the lines, we need to get over just executive summaries.
Indeed.
We need to get over just the executive summary. Sometimes what we believe is the answer is just the context for the answer, which is very important. But storyteller Amina, on Levels and Meds, the idea is we really want to give people blueprints, lessons, practical things that they can do to achieve their dreams, to create success, to make a difference in the world. You have done it. You have walked the path and you continue to do it. And I'm sure whenever that day comes, long after you're gone, it will still be happening because of the seeds you've sown today. You are definitely one of those people. You have planted the tree whose shade you will never sit under. The question is, if I find that I'm a storyteller, if I have a passion for history, I have a passion for cultural preservation, how do I create a living out of it? And I'd love for you to share with our listeners how you have gone about, because this, I believe, Jeffrey, believe that this is a big identifier as who you are. Yes, you have many titles, but who you are is a preserver of the story. That's who I believe you are, in one of many facets. If somebody else identifies as that, how do they go about building a life around that?
And let me begin by saying it's not easy. Let me give thanks to those people who have cleared the ground. The Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley must be mentioned here. She wasn't the first collector of stories, and she was not the first person to have performed in the Jamaican language. Long back in the 1800s, there was a father and two boys, surnamed Murray, who were called the Murray Boys, who went around performing Jamaican stories. And then there was Sir Philip Sherlock, who was also a collector. There was Martha Beckwith, who also collected. But in terms of the profile of the storytelling, then we give thanks to Miss Lou. Miss Lou suffer, you know. Miss Lou tell me, and me want she tell, but when I say these things, my love go on like say, me and she was having tea. And she whisper like a secret.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
And we used to drink lemonade.
There you go.
Too. But on me want she tell about the number of times while doing Miss Lou's views on that radio station at the time, months would go by and she wouldn't get her check. One little bit of money in the shillings. And she wouldn't get her check. And thank God she had a husband. And thank God she had two little houses she could have rent up in a garden town. But Miss Lou has cleared the way. And yes, she told me now that she tell Faye Ellington to come here for you, say Miss Lou tell her. Ask for what you are worth. You mightn't get it right away, but learn to value your work and learn to ask for it and learn to negotiate. So we honor Miss Lou for that. And after that, we have to define what we mean by success. What do we mean by success? Whole heap of money, I want it, Lord.
Amen.
Enough pretty clothes, I want it, Lord.
Amen.
The best car in the world, and all
Amen.
of those material representations of success. But success is also how you feel about the work you're doing. Success is also that a child that came to your first storytelling festival in 1998, who is no longer a child, buck you up and say, crick, crack, and you know that that person heard it when they were 8 years old. Success is knowing that people are enjoying the show and are making suggestions even now about where we could take it because we're adding value to their lives. We're not about being the starving artist. Mash down that lie.
Mash it right down, folks.
Mash it
right
down.
down.
But there are other elements by which we can say, I've done something successfully.
Folks, three major keys a while ago. We don't even get into the business of storytelling, but there's what we spoke about a while ago is mindset first and foremost. So the first one is you have to accept that it's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a fight. The second is ask for what you're worth. So you have to know what you're worth, and you have to know it's going to be hard. And then you have to get over the mindset of the starving artist, because many of us, myself included, I definitely feel like I'm a part of that batch, who believed I had something great to do. So I'm just going to put it out into the world, and whatever comes of it, comes of it. But that is not a way to live. That I'm not working towards anything. I'm not calling anything into my life. And I think that's a lot of what the starving artist is about, is I've created something great, and people should realize that it's great. But as you said, we have to recognize where we're creating the value.
And those of us who are spiritually grounded, and I use that word deliberately, not Christianly grounded, I think every scripture has a version of the people and them talents. 3 people get some talent, one say, how are this? And him hide it under the bushel and can't bother with it. But the one who went out and multiplied and came back with 20, where he had 10, is where we need to go. What I'm saying is we have a spiritual obligation to succeed, and we have a spiritual responsibility to ensure that if it can't happen with us, we shouldn't be saying it.
Go further into that for me. If it can't happen with us, we shouldn't say it.
We
Elaborate.
cannot tell people that you can succeed as an artist if in your own life it is not manifesting as success. How you know that?
That's the point. So a quick little backstory into Jeffrey. Jeffrey was definitely that person telling people, you can be successful. I hadn't achieved it yet, but I saw it very clearly in my mind's eye. I knew exactly where I was going. I knew the impact I wanted to make. And I declared it. I said, I am the best. And if I'm not the best yet, I will be the best. And for a long time, it was very hard to convince people otherwise, because, as you say, I had not
You couldn't
done it as
demonstrate
yet.
it.
It wasn't until, and it's a very stark moment in my life where a speaker that I have a lot of admiration for, they're still around, they said, you are one of the best speakers. It was so interesting because after he declared that over my life, I started getting calls. Without any referrals, without any recommendations, it was as if stamp of approval. You've now done the work, here's a stamp of approval, and then the calls started coming following that declaration. So I could say at that point I had done it, and so now people wanted
Jeffrey,
to do it
that is
as well.
so important. Not just what we declare over ourselves, but what others declare over us. We don't want to get trite or say what has been said already, the dark moments, but the dark moments are so important. When you tell somebody that they can succeed, when you tell them that you see greatness in them and you watch them live up to those expectations, because we can also live down to expectations. True. What a worthless little boy or a worthless little girl, but no say you not come to nothing. It only takes one time for them to hear it, to believe it. So it only takes one time for them to hear the opposite. And I'm saying it now because you are helping me to recall what my Sunday school teacher used to say, what my teachers at primary school used to say, what Easton Lee said. I didn't know I could write for radio. I knew I could write. And somebody tell Easton Lee, whom I had never met, and Easton called me for the first time we were going to observe Heritage Week in 1977 and say, me here you can write a story for radio. But I've never written for radio. I'm saying, yes, man, you can write for radio. And I wrote 5 programs, hoping that he would use one, and he used all of them. And then me think, say, that was a declaration. He never said these are wonderful. Did he? Me no remember. But the act of doing it, of using all of the programs, was a declaration. It's very important for how we change Jamaica. Recently, I've been thinking of a story that I was made to read in 3rd form, because I went to one of those schools who believe that women should be steeped in literature and have things to say about books. And that wicked English teacher gave me in 3rd form The Tale of Two Cities.
But that's not a bad book. That's a good decent story.
In 3rd form.
Well, I just read it like a couple of years ago. I just read it a few years ago. So I had the historical context so I could understand the book. But yes.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Mm-hmm. And it appears that we're going through the worst of times now. It appears that, as Martin Carter would say, these are the dark times, my love, but we can declare and speak another way over ourselves and over others through the stories that we tell.
Folks, I think if you're looking into the business of storytelling, I feel our storyteller Amina just hit the nail on the head. Storytelling is aside from preserving the history, it's also a declaration of the future.
Absolutely.
That's the value it adds. Even if I'm telling history, even if I'm adding wisdom from the past, it's focused on adding value to the future.
It's how we make believe and make belief. If you do not know the story of Vietnam and you only watch American movies, America win. Easy as cheese. Because that's how they want us to see them.
That's the story.
So that's the story. That's the story. And therefore we can tell stories that make us victorious, that make believe and make belief. Ben Okri, a Nigerian writer, who the Famished Road is perhaps his most famous book. But he has other things, The Birds of Heaven, and he's a fabulous storyteller. Never met him. But him write down say, a nation, a people are as sick or as healthy as the stories they tell themselves about themselves.
Well, if that be the case, Jamaicans, at least the story we tell, we should be the number one in everything in the world, because we tell people everywhere we go, we make impact. Everywhere we go, we get gold.
But we sabotage ourselves. Here we know. We see something on TikTok, something terrible happen somewhere. We don't know it's where, you know, here we. Boy, only in Jamaica that thing can happen. And it's not in Jamaica. So yes, we have these moments of glory where we shine and astound the world and astound ourselves, but we keep going back to only in Jamaica the worst thing can happen. Those are sick stories, and Ben Okri say a sick story can make the nation sick. And therefore, if storytellers are telling sick stories, they are contributing to this disease, this illness. And so what we need to find is those stories that re-enchant us with who we are and help us to re-enchant. We have some nice story, you know. One of, besides Nancy and the Bible and how your mother meet your father, one of my nicest stories, I have plenty nicest stories, but one of my nicest stories is about Shelley Ann Price, whom I've never had a conversation with. But in 2008, when she mashed up Beijing, and she was being interviewed on TV by Neville Bell, who had interviewed her mother first, and said, what did you tell Shelley Ann last night? And the mother said, too much hair upon her head. She must pull it back. Yes. And then right after that, he interviewed Shelley Ann and said, what did your mother say to you last night? And the camera did a close-up, and Shelley Ann here pull back off her face. She's halfway around the world. Her mother can't run her down for beat her. And if she could have run her down, she couldn't catch her. But here she is.
Embracing.
What a beautiful story.
I give you a better story than that about Shelly. And so for years I worked in Halfway Tree in Azan, and Shelly's mother at the time when Shelly was in high school, Shelly's mother used to sell socks on the sidewalk in front of Azan's. And every time Shelly came in the paper, she would come in the store, she would take out our paper. She never buy the paper, mind you, She knew we got the paper, so she'd come and she'd take out the paper and she'd say, "See my girl there?" And we kind of go, okay, it's our mother, she's proud, it's her child, etc. I wasn't a fan of athletics. I don't think many Jamaicans were a fan of athletics as the way we are now before 2008. So I said, okay, great, whatever. And I took a little note and moved on in life. When the 2008 Olympics took place and I saw Shelly in the block, I said, but that girl looked familiar. And she won, and then I saw the interview that Neville did with her mom, and I said, but that's it. So the reality is, we talk about, and I love that you brought that up, because we're talking about the instruction the mother gave, and that becomes a story. It's that little instruction became a story, and the obedience of it. But there's a story prior to that, that her mother never lost faith in her. Her mother always celebrated her, no matter what position they were in life. I mean, this is somebody who used to have to a lot of people don't know or even appreciate this. Shelly's mother coming from the place where she used to have to fold up cardboard with the socks in there and run away from police so that they never take her off of the sidewalk. And this is not an opinion. This is I saw this. I lived this with my own two eyes, because she used to come into Azan's to hide from the police until they went, and then she got set back up shop. So I know for years she sewed into her, despite the situation they were in financially. So for me, Shelly's story is so much more than a goal and the achievement and then going on to be mother and wife and business person. But it started with her mom being proud of her from the beginning.
Jeffrey, thank you for celebrating that, because there are so many Jamaicans who are in the position of Shelly Ann's mom whom we don't celebrate. We see them out of Halfway Tree or wherever they are. And I say, if I am driving through Halfway Tree at 5 o'clock in the morning, me see them a sweep. Me see them a put out the things out of the tree suitcase where them trudge from I don't know how far. I see hope. I see I'm not giving up. When we say Jamaicans are resilient, I see that. I see discipline. Them sit down there for the whole day, maybe one pants no sell. And when night falls, they pack up and they go home with, in whatever spirit, joyfully, in disappointment, whatever. But they're looking forward to tomorrow when it's going to be a better day. We need to celebrate those Jamaicans who teach us those attributes, and we need to celebrate those attributes as well.
Folks, you're hearing it here. I think we could have like a special on this, I don't know, talk about this all week as far as I'm concerned. But we really need to get into some of the business details. I really want you, before we wrap up the show, because we are somehow coming to the end of the show, I'd love you to tell us more about the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica, because if we're talking about the business of storytelling, we're talking about creating or constructing a society of value through the power of storytelling. And here you have it. You've taken the steps. The Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica. Tell us about that entity and what it's.
If I ever tell you how we start, we started with maybe 5 of us. And we had this dream that in 7 days we're doing 14 parishes. So by making 7 stops. So we would stop, for example, in St. Anne, but the students in Trelawney would be invited to the St. Anne Parish Library. So we were using parish libraries. We hadn't a clue what we were going to eat, where we were going to sleep. We line up some people. We line up Miss Talia Lynn, who did believe in the vision, and she give us some vouchers that anywhere we stop and one of our restaurants, is nearby. We could have get something. That's really how we started. We just had this conviction that the storytelling tradition could not, should not, would not die while we were alive. And 28 years later, we're able to attract the most celebrated storytellers from around the world, storytelling researchers, anthropologists who come to our festival every year, and some of whom have written up in international journals that if you want to know how to conduct a storytelling festival, go to Jamaica.
Wow.
Go to Jamaica. And we've reached a point where Chase supports us. The Ministry of Culture under this minister has never stopped supporting our work. Tourism Enhancement Fund now sees the value of what we're doing and the value to tourism. Yes, so we have come from far. We are at the point of recruiting young storytellers. So any young storyteller, no matter how young you are, as long as you want to tell a story, because we are not going to live forever. But what we do should live forever. We're determined about that. We have been fortunate that for the last maybe 10 years we've been asking for a place, because when you have a place you can do so much more. And this year the Michael University offered us a space in their Renfrew Shirley Library. So we now say the Michael University College, home of Ntukuma, the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica. We're in the process of fixing it up so we can have workshops and readings and so on and so on and so forth.
Folks, you've heard so much about storytelling. If you even have a remote passion for storytelling, I feel that we've given you examples, demonstrations, points of value, points of interest. You heard it here. You don't need to be the starving artist. Know what you're worth. Ask for what you're worth. Be clear about what you're going for. But I think this final story is the story we need to wrap up today's Levels and Medz on. It's that it starts with a vision, and then that vision must be coupled with perseverance. 28 years.
And we just get that space.
And they just get a space. And within that 28 years, the last 10, they were looking for the space. Yet, because of the vision, because of the commitment, because of the perseverance, international recognition, international invitation, I'm sure each member has benefited in some way personally
Absolutely.
from it. And they have built a foundation, something that I suspect is going to long outlast them, myself, and maybe many of you listening right now, because of the value it adds to society. It is a solution to a societal problem, and it's one which I will say I'm happy to hear is happening. It's in the works, and I know I can speak for the Bridge. Let us be a part of whatever you're doing.
Oh,
Please.
wonderful.
The Bridge will be happy to be a part.
Hand per hand, make hand clap.
There you go. There you go. Folks, unfortunately, we have to wrap up this episode of Levels and Medz. This has been a phenomenal session. Remember, you're listening to the Bridge 99 FM. You can tune in anywhere on the 99 bandwidth. You can check us out online at thebridge99fm.com, or you can download our mobile app in the Android Play Store or Apple App Store by searching the Bridge 99 FM, all one word. Where can they find you, Storyteller Amina?
All right, so I do the Facebook thing. I have a YouTube channel called Time with Amina. I have, what you call that thing again, a Facebook page. I said that already.
You said Facebook.
Yes. And Ntukuma has two Facebook pages, one called Ntukuma and one called Anansi Matters. Did I say I have a website? A website. My personal website is just my name,
Okay.
AminaBlackwoodMix.com.
And for those who are looking to find Ntukuma, let me spell it for you because I had to spell it. It's Ntukuma. Ntukuma. And you can find Amina at everywhere she said,
Yes.
and check her out on her website, her YouTube, her IG, and her Facebook page. Folks, this has been a phenomenal episode. I've been your host, Jeffrey Azan. I look forward to the next Levels and Medz next week. Remember, Levels and Medz is all about next level living and next level thinking. Until next time, have a great day and don't stop leveling up.